Oh, wow. Finally got through. Is anybody here? Because I had a hard time getting onto this live stream this morning. So hopefully everything will go okay. Thanks to those of you who are joining me this morning. I want to talk about spells. That seems like a really interesting thing, but given the current thing that's going on from the very beginning with this situation with the coronavirus, I was never worried about the virus. I was more worried about the fear mongering surrounding the virus, because whenever I see a lot of fear mongering take place, I know that there is something happening that is not good, because I understand that spiritually, that God does not work by scaring people. God works by giving people faith, giving people hope, giving them courage and strength and so forth. And so the minute I see fear mongering take place, I know that there's something going on that's trying to get to people. And so years ago, I've told people and put written messages on Facebook and so forth that I started out in majoring in communications. Actually, I wanted to be a writer from the time I was a little kid, and my dad said, you can't just be a novel writer. You've got to have some other career. So in high school, I took journalism classes, and my high school journalism teacher taught us about good journalistic style. She would get really, really upset with people who interpreted, gave opinions, blah 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 blah, when they were supposed to be doing journalism. And journalism is about, it's almost like a scientific paper. You cite sources. You say, okay, this, I interviewed this person. This is what they said. Blah 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 blah. You're trying to present facts. You're leaving the interpretation of the facts to the reader. I also studied communications in college. In fact, my first semester at the University of Utah, we took a class in mass communications, and we learned about gatekeepers. We learned how media can subtly manipulate the story with a bias, while they're appearing to be objective. For instance, we learned things like, okay, you've got a crowd of 10,000 peaceful demonstrators, but in one corner of the demonstration, a fight breaks out. The cameras zoom in on where the fight takes place, and then what the people on TV see is this demonstration, and they see a close-up of the fight. They don't see the big picture of all of the other people who were demonstrating peaceably and so forth. Or the fact that you can take and you're doing a documentary, you're interviewing both sides, but you always have the side that you want to win speak last. So in other words, you let the opposing side have their opinion, and then you present the person who contradicts that without allowing a rebuttal from the other person. So basically, all these subtle techniques for biasing information and so forth. So I've been very, very aware of this stuff, and very open to how that works since I was a very young age. Like, this is almost this over 40 years ago. And I've watched the mainstream press become more and more manipulative. What's also interesting is in my senior year in high school, I had an advanced placement English class, and the instructor had us read George Orwell's 1984, and he also had us read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. And I thought, literally, when I read these books, I thought they were some of the stupidest books I had ever read in my life, particularly 1984. Concepts like doublethink, where people can hold two completely contradictory opinions in the same brain and not realize that those opinions are in conflict with each other. And also, one of the ideas presented in 1984 is the news tells you what to think. And so in 1984, there's three superpowers. And so the news says, okay, we're at war with superpower A, we're friends with superpower B. And then the next day they say, now we're at war with superpower B and friends with superpower A. And we've always been, and this is the part, we've always been friends with superpower A, and and superpower B has been the enemy. In other words, completely change the narrative, and then actually literally change people's understanding history and people believe it. And I thought these and a whole bunch of other ideas, controlling people with drugs and all that sort of thing, were absolutely the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But then as I've grown up, as I got into understanding things that were really going on in the world, I found out these are not such hilarious ideas at all. They're actually very commonplace. I would literally watch the media say one thing, okay, and then they would take and a few months later say something completely contradictory and act like they had always had that position, when you could blatantly go back and see that they had promoted something else earlier. And politicians doing the same thing all the time. Like I can remember George W. Bush, no more taxes, no new taxes, read my lips, blah, blah, blah. Every first thing he gets in office, new taxes. I mean, it's just lying, hypocritical, stuff. That's why I just quit listening to it. So let me give you one of the things about doublethink that really, really just bothers me immensely. Is I know there are a lot of people who really think that big corporations are evil. Big corporations are evil. Big corporations are controlling everything, and they're blah, 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 blah. And I realize there are some pretty corrupt big corporations and big organizations. But then they listen to mainstream news media and swallow it, like it is telling the gospel truth, when mainstream news media is run by 6 big corporations. They're all getting a huge part of their advertising funding from what? Other big corporations. So you don't think, okay, in the thing I learned over 40 years ago in college, that the gatekeepers who control what stories get put and what stories don't get said, do you think they're actually going to let anything that really seriously jeopardizes the interests of huge big corporations get into mainstream media to be aired? Because that's where their money comes from. That's where their advertising comes. It's all just illusion. So let's get back into the idea of spells. One of the books I read those many years ago was called The Plug-in Drug, and it was about television. And the author had really done a research basically saying that television is hypnotic. The very medium of it is hypnotic. He was explaining, like, people used to go out, and if you've ever sat around a campfire at night and you're staring at the campfire, or one of the techniques to get a person into a meditative state is they stare at a candle. When you have light, when you're staring directly at a light source like the moon or a fire, it tends to put you into a peaceful, altered state of consciousness in which your critical defensive thinking starts to go down, okay? And you start to absorb things. So I read this book, and it really made a lot of sense that television, what was it? Marshall McLuhan said that when he wrote a book on called TV a vast wasteland. This was over 40 years ago. He says if you turn on the TV at that time, TV programming came on maybe 6 or 7 in the morning and ended at maybe 11 or 12 o'clock at night. He says if you turn it on in the morning and watch it all day long, what you'll see is nothing but a vast wasteland. Okay. Of just designed to get you to tune in. And he says, you don't watch TV programming, you watch TV. Like you go into, oh, let's watch some TV. And then you flip the channels and see what is the least objectionable program, he called it. And then you watch the least objectionable program, and you go into this mesmerized state, okay? And back then they talked about the fact that you have to change the image every 3 to 4 seconds or people get bored, because people don't like just sitting and watching a talking face usually, unless you're really into the content. The constant flipping of the signal. Well, they kept shortening that so that now the image is changing very, very rapidly. That creates a very, very rapid response in your brain. It's highly hypnotic. I mean, literally, the medium itself hypnotizes you, and then you watch it, and it goes in, and you kind of like creates subconscious thinking and programming. So, as some people have pointed out, look at the very name they gave it: television. Tell a vision, tell a story, give a story. It's programming, television programming. The whole idea suggests that you're watching stuff that is designed to program and hypnotize you. And it so I when I got into studying this, I just decided I didn't want a TV in my home, literally. And I said, until I can actually control what I want to see, like you can decide you want to go to a movie, right? Because it looks like it's a good movie. Until I can actually do that, I'm going to quit watching TV. I raised my kids with no TV in the home. And when we finally did get a TV, basically what we did is we had a VCR and mostly just picked movies and occasionally watched a show. But I just for years, I just didn't watch TV because I just felt, number one, it's a huge waste of time. Now, when I wound up single and alone, I actually started putting the TV on, just to have noise in the background. And I also, when I got a satellite, I realized I could record programs I was interested in and watch them later, and I could skip over all the advertising and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that there has been for many, many years a consistent programming going on. I've got a book in my library called Influencer, which talks about how techniques for changing social opinion. And one of the techniques they have for changing social opinion is TV shows. So if you watch like old movies and a lot of old programs, like the stuff I grew up with, Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, you see this nuclear family with the stay-at-home mom and the wise, calm father and that sort of thing. But then as you go forward, you see these increasingly dysfunctional families, increasingly idiotic fathers, and blah blah blah, and all of that is subtly going in and programming ideas into your brain. And so gradually over time, people have been encouraged to accept all kinds of things that they once would revolt at. The increasingly graphic violence that at one time would have turned people's stomachs, now a lot of people consume it regularly. And it's a desensitizing mechanism that gradually desensitizes you to things. Well, I've known for a long time that mainstream news media is rigged. I originally thought it was mostly because it's controlled by corporate America. But then as I got into it and I really started to understand the elite people who want world power and what they are doing to try to pull things behind the scenes. And I had these discussions with a former CIA agent, and I learned about Project Mockingbird. And Project Mockingbird was the CIA infiltration of the media, of Hollywood, music, etc., and with the idea of literally reprogramming people and learning how to, through fear and stirring people up with anger, to divide people and create a lot of problems. And so it became very clear to me that this was going on. And so when this whole coronavirus thing started, I thought, okay. In fact, one of the teenagers in my family asked me yesterday, he says, "This is the new 9/11, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah, it is." Because if you really get into looking at the 9/11 story, you find out that the official story of 9/11 is so full of things that are completely scientifically inaccurate and impossible that you have to start questioning, well, how can something that is that unscientific, that illogical, that crazy literally become accepted as true? And it's because of the principle of spellbinding. Spellbinding is when you buy into an illusion. You're deceived. A spell is cast on you that allows you to believe something that's ridiculous that you don't question. And so I have never been about wanting followers per se, in the sense of like people like to be the guru and have people look up to me and think, oh wow. My thing has always been, I want people to think for themselves. I want them to think critically. I don't want them to blindly believe me or anybody else. I don't blindly believe anybody. Okay, there are people that I find are more trusted sources of information than other people. There are so forth, but I don't ever shut out the sources that I don't trust. I want to understand what their viewpoint is, what the argument is, and so forth, and kind of weigh out for myself what makes sense and what seems true. But critical thinking is really largely gone in our society. And so this whole thing with the coronavirus thing, there's a whole thing leading up to it. Because when I, in the early 80s, started to understand what health was really all about, and I started to understand that healthy bodies don't get infections. Infection is a process that happens only when the body has already started to become sick. A healthy body, we live in a sea of microbes. I mean, literally everywhere, on every surface we touch and the air we breathe, there are viruses, bacteria, mold spores, blah, 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 blah. This entire ecosystem. People used to live out in nature, right? They used to go live out in the dirt, right? And the dirt is full of this stuff. And they were healthier than we are because their immune system learned how to tell what was a real threat and what wasn't a real threat. And as long as they were healthy and they didn't like have a shortage in their food supply and their or an excessively cold winter they weren't prepared for that weakened their bodies, people were generally robust and resistant to disease. The more we've become more and more sickly because we've been taught that germs by themselves are the cause of disease. And so we developed this mysophobia, germ phobia of like thinking we have to disinfect, sanitize everything. Well, it's been really interesting. I did a webinar on this one time where I showed as the infectious diseases declined, allergies and autoimmune diseases rose. Okay. So we started to get infectious disease under control, but because we over sterilized and we didn't focus on the real issue, which was immunity, keeping a healthy immune system, living a healthy lifestyle, the immune system became more and more disordered because the more sterile the environment is, the more antibiotics and disinfectants and all this other stuff you use, the more disordered your immune system becomes, and it overreacts to things. Now, that's an interesting thing because Dr. Shiva, I've watched some of his videos, and he says basically the people who die from this novel coronavirus, their immune system is overreacting to it. And so it's the overreaction of the immune system that causes all the symptoms. And I've long recognized that the symptoms are created by the body in order to cure itself. And so when I started taking that approach and started trying to work with the body with the symptoms, I started to get really fabulous results. Whereas before, when I was focused on the germs, I didn't get good results. So I abandoned that whole paradigm over 30 years ago and started working on a different paradigm, keeping a strong immune system. So now I'm looking around me at, all these people like afraid to touch each other, afraid to shake each other's hand, afraid to give each other a hug. This social distancing, we've got to stand so far apart from each other because we're all contagious and we're going to kill each other with germs. And the whole wiping off the handles of the shopping carts because it's gone to the point of absurdity, of absolute absurdity, that we're willing to ruin our entire economy. Here's another thing, and it's just a little kind of side note that I'd like to address in greater detail at another time. But I was listening to a guy was talking about, the majority of people in this world work for small businesses. They don't work for big corporations. Okay? There are 30 million small businesses in this country, 30 million small businesses in this country that employ less than 25 people each. Okay? And it's those small businesses that are the backbone of America. And those businesses, by and large, are built by people who tried to provide honest service at a reasonable price. So when we are focusing on these big multinational corporations, and we want to pass all this legislation to control all this, what people don't realize is big business wants all that regulation because it puts their smaller competitors out of business. That's why they push out the agenda on mainstream media of we've got to control these big corporations, we got to put in all these laws, because they've got the lawyers, they've got the big infrastructure to deal with a bunch of stupid government regulations, and small businesses don't. So their goal is to put small businesses out of business. You got to wake up and realize that you can't trust you can't just blindly follow the mainstream media, like constantly saying Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. Okay, what? Trump isn't. If you start, because here's what happens: the moment you decide in your brain this person is evil and they're bad, in your mind you will look for every bit of evidence to prove they're evil or bad. If you decide that they're a hero and they're perfect or whatever, you won't see anything they do wrong. You got to keep a neutral mind and go, okay, Trump does some things well and Trump does other things not so well. And maybe, whatever, every one of us is a mixture of good and evil, but this it is designed to deliberately polarize the nation, to split us apart, to divide us, to conquer us, because the more we fight amongst each other and blame each other, and we get into all these the more we don't see who the real enemy is, and the real enemy is very sinister, and it's hard to wake up and see what's really going on in this world. And when I started to really wake up and see it in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, when I started to work with people who had been ritualistically abused, and God helped me understand that there were these Satan worshiping pedophiles to do other horrible things who are trying to manipulate things behind the scenes because they want to control the entire world. Now that's very biblical, by the way. If any of you believe in the Bible, that there's an evil force that wants to control the world and have everybody worship them, okay, then you recognize that's an enemy. Now, God is stronger than the enemy. So if we put our faith in God and we're able to confront the evil, we are able to get power over it, but not when we're in a spell, not when we're transfixed and mesmerized, and we've lost our ability to think critically and question the things we're seeing. Okay, we have to wake up. Means to start engaging your own senses, your own mind, your own rational thinking, and your own gut instincts. Your gut instincts will tell you something's fishy. Something's not right here. I need to look deeper into this. I need to figure this out, because we've been so trained to not trust ourselves. There are some passages in Isaiah where Isaiah talks about people being drunk, but not with wine. They're intoxicated, but not with strong drink, because they've gone to sleep, and they are not discerning what is happening. They've bought into illogical lies. Okay, they're drunk with lies. When you're drunk, you can't think clearly. When you're drunk, you can't act clearly. When you don't understand truth, when you can't see truth clearly, you don't know what to do to get what you want. Truth is what enables you to see clearly the actions you have to take to get the results that you want. Truth gives you an accurate knowledge that allows you to achieve what you want to achieve in life. If you're not achieving what you want in life, if you're putting forth effort to get something and you're not getting it, the reason you're not getting it is because you have been in some way deceived with inaccurate information, and you haven't been given the correct information that tells you how to achieve it. Now, whether that's health or whether that's making money or or having a great relationship with someone, everything is based on cause and effect. You have to make the right choices, do the right things, learn the right skills, master the right things in order to have anything good in this life. If you're making an effort in something and it's not working, it's because the things that you're doing and the ideas you're working from are inaccurate. And we have been fed inaccurate information about finances. I could go into that for a long time about how economics work and so forth. Obviously, the entire world doesn't understand anything about money or economics or how it works, and they're all just blind to it. Our public education system has taught us a whole bunch of fallacious things about what it means to learn, and on and on and on. It's just the more I look at this, the more I find that Paul Simon is right. When I look back at all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all. I mean, literally, it's a wonder any of us can think at all, because we've been given so much false information. Our whole society is drunk with misinformation. This actually, what is taking place, many people have called the Great Awakening. Many people are starting to realize something's wrong here, and they're starting to wake up, question what's going on, question the ideas they're being presented with, think critically for themselves. And the moment we do that, even if we disagree, that's great. We're both thinking. We're both got our engagements. We can dialogue. You can the stuff that you've come to versus stuff I've come to. We can talk about it, whatever, and figure it out. But if you have disengaged your critical thinking and you're as Napoleon Hill in his book Outwitting the Devil says, one of my tools is to get people to make is to form, what did he call it? Loosely formed opinions. In other words, to form an opinion based on something you've heard, blah, 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 seen, without questioning it, analyzing it, looking deeply in it, to whatever, and thinking about it for yourself. You form all these loose opinions and you hang on to them dogmatically, because that's another thing I learned in communications. Once you've decided that something is a certain way, your brain starts filtering everything out that disagrees with you. So if like I've said to people, if you've decided your spouse is selfish, anything they do for you, you will interpret through the lens that you've already decided they're selfish. You cannot see clearly when you have a whole bunch of loosely formed opinions through which you're filtering the content of the world. To open your eyes, to wake up, to be aware, to be willing to recognize, well, I may be wrong, I may be right, we'll find out. Let's try this. Maybe it doesn't work, we'll try that. That's open. In fact, one of my favorite authors, Anthony DeMello, says that's real faith. Faith isn't a dogmatic belief in a particular thing that you're never going to change because no matter what facts have you. Faith is trusting that with the help of God, with the help of your own reasoning and heart and connection to the divine, you can figure out how to solve things. You can figure out how to deal with life. You can figure out how to take the next step. That's real faith. Faith is an open-ended thing. All things are possible to him that believes. That's faith. That means that whatever challenges we're facing, whether it's this crisis that our country is having or a crisis we're having in our personal life, through faith and prayer, we can overcome it. But to overcome the bigger things that are happening in the world, we have to get enough people waking up, praying, thinking, and so forth to do this. So I'm hoping this is a shaking. This whole thing, the whole virus fear thing, is shaking a lot of people up. But I think it's also serving to help wake up a lot of people. And I'm very, very hopeful and feel very positive because I've, again, a good gut instinct that we're going to come through this and we're going to be better off than we were before, because it's going to wake a lot of people up how manipulative the things are. The entire and for me, this has been a long time coming. When I look and I see how all the amazing things you can do with nutrition, with energy work, with like lasers and electrical frequencies and things, all the amazing things you can do with getting people to adopt a healthier lifestyle, all these things that are actually very low cost, right? Very easy for people to implement. And our whole health paradigm doesn't even address this. Nobody in mainstream talks about things like vitamin D or vitamin C or vitamin A or zinc or any of the things that actually help your body defend from viruses. Nobody. It's all kept down, even though there's tons of research to support this. Oh, that's not scientific. No, it is scientific. There's tons of research to support it, but people get put into the spell, okay, because of what they're fed in the news, and they don't think critically. And so people, this is the thing I have all the time. People are chronically ill. They're taking medications that are making them sick from horrible side effects, but they don't want to go off of it and try something different because their doctor told them if they quit taking the medication, they're going to die. Well, that's a spell. The doctor just cast a spell on you. He put a voodoo hex on you. He made you afraid to trust your own judgment, opinion, and thought and run your own life. And anybody who does that, okay, is controlling you through fear and intimidation and dividing society by making people angry and fight each other while they stay in control. This is the thing that is the thing that I want to wake people up to start seeing, because if you wake up and start seeing it and you start thinking critically, you will start to take charge of your own life. I wanted to just, read this one little, if I can find it here, that I got from Isaiah. And I'm just going to read this in closing. It's from Isaiah chapter 51. He says, "Therefore, please hear this, you afflicted, okay, and drunk, but not with wine. Thus says your Lord, the Lord and your God, who pleads the cause of his people. See, I have taken out of your hand the cup of trembling, the dregs of the cup of my fury. You shall no longer drink it, but I have put it into the hands of those that afflict you, and who have said to you, lie down so we can walk over you." Do you ever feel like you're being walked on? All right? That the whole society, the whole government system, the whole economic system is walking on you. Okay? Lie down that we may walk over you. And you have, okay? And he says, and you have laid your body like the ground and as the street for those who walk over it. We've let these people walk over us way too long. It's time to put our trust in God. Believe that God, if we're praying, if we're trying to be honest and sincere, and look and search for the truth, God can help us find the truth, and we can quit being doormats. Okay, I'm personally tired of being a doormat. I'm tired of keeping my mouth shut too, because for so years it was all politically incorrect to question the official narrative of anything. Okay, screw that. I'm tired of it. The official narrative is full of holes. So let's question it. All of us question it. Maybe we won't come to the same conclusions. That's fine. At least we're not being doormats for all the people in power who want to rule over us and control our lives and propose things like Bill Gates that we should all mandatorily be vaccinated for this stupid thing. I haven't had a flu shot in my entire life and never plan to have one, because I've seen more people get sick from flu shots than get sick from the flu. And so not only that we have to have this in order to travel or hold a job or whatever, we want a digital certificate, a little chip put in your thing so you can be scanned to prove that you've been vaccinated. Really, the whole draconian thing of like controlling our lives, destroying our God-given right to peaceable assembly, which was guaranteed by the Constitution, destroying our right to freedom of speech, wanting to take away our right to defend ourselves, to keep and bear arms to defend ourselves. All of this is crazy, and that's always what they're pushing: is give up your control of your own life and give it to us, so we'll keep you safe, we'll protect you, we'll take good care of you. Okay, that has got to be the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard, because people who seek power aren't interested in you. Okay? People who seek power, who want you to let us be your big daddy and take care of you, they're not interested in you. They're interested in power, money, and fame. And if the people who really care about people are not power seekers. And that's one of the things I admire greatly about George Washington. George Washington could have been king of the United States, but he decided not to. He could have remained president forever, but he decided to step down to set an example that ordinary people could go into power, okay, be elected into power, not professional politicians, but ordinary people from ordinary walks of life, serve in government for a limited time, and then come back out into the private sector. That was what our country was founded on: citizen-based government, not an elite who make all the rules and we follow them. But listening to Alexis de Tocqueville's book, Democracy in America, where he talks about most of the government in the early United States took place at the community and state levels, very little at the federal, where people have the most control over things, right? Where they know the people more intimately who are running and have better judge of their character and everything. We need to get back to that. We need to get back to the people. We the people, and we the people is not the socialistic idea of we the people, that we're going to have a big government that runs everything for us and tries to make us all equal in the sense of the same, okay? But a government that makes us all equal, and that our individuality and our rights to our own life, liberty, and property are respected. That's real equality. Anyway, I have got on my soapbox again. So I hope those of you who joined me enjoyed hearing me rant on my soapbox. But this stuff, I can't keep silent anymore. It's like it's welling up in me and just wanting to come out. So I've got to get on here and start speaking what I have, because mostly I want people to wake up. I want people to be able to start questioning everything that's going on. I don't blindly accept what the mainstream media is, and I don't blindly accept what Trump says. Okay, I don't blindly accept either one. I try to analyze it, look at it, and use my gut instincts and my spidey instinct and decide what's right and what's wrong. I don't want anybody doing my thinking for me. Okay, that's between me and God. And as long as I am not trespassing on your right to think for yourself, worship God as you please, honestly live your life, okay, then I think I should be allowed to do that, and so should you, right? But we're never all going to agree on anything. But if we respect our right to disagree, and we allow for a maximum amount of freedom, we're allowing for a maximum amount of innovation, and through that human creativity and that God-given inspiration, we can solve whatever problems come our way. By the way, that also leads into the other thing. I don't have any problem that I not only believe in God, I have a relationship with God, that I've had God answer my prayers. I've had God reveal things to me. I've had God help me learn things that I didn't, that I needed to know in order to make my life work better. To me, God is not just this philosophical idea that you, not in religion. Looks like my video is lagging a little bit, but God is a living reality for me. And I don't see God as incompatible with science, because many of the greatest scientists in the world not only believed in God, but many of them said they got their ideas from, they may not have referred to it God, but from this universal intelligence, this source outside of themselves. And I think most great scientific advancement has actually been by revelation, by someone being inspired. They were searching for an answer, and God inspired them with the answer. And so I don't see anything incompatible with science and religion and a belief in God. But anyway, enough. Thank you for joining me today. Thanks for all the comments you made. But don't be programmed, okay? And think for yourself. Have a great day. Bye.